Kendall Wouters.
Thank you, Dar. Hey, folks. Thanks, Dar. Thanks for having me. Dar asked me to talk a little bit about my history, and I wanted to, tell a little bit about what the difference is with California, where we come from, and with, I guess I'm gonna, should I register this now, or? What I'll do is talk it to you in three stories: the past, the present, and the future. A little bit about my past. Like I'm probably an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur like probably most of you folks here, and I'm a founder of a company called Blue Hornet. I founded it in San Diego. I'm an EIR, just the way Dar mentioned, for JumpStart and the Youngstown Business Incubator. And I go around the area working with folks like Bob from Mansfield at Braintree and other incubators, really trying to help other entrepreneurs get their stuff going. I do Ruby, code. I love the whole greater good, and I'm a father of 3 and a husband of 1, which are here today, everybody over there. A little bit about my past. I started a company, like I mentioned, in 1999, right when the bubble popped, right when you never should start a company, or especially an internet company. I thought it would take about $59,000 to create. It ended up $2.5 million before we were in the black. I learned a lot about human nature. I learned a lot about investors and employees and interns. I made a lot of people millionaires I shouldn't have done or shouldn't have made. So if anybody is wanting to just throw around equity, talk to me first. I lost Baskin-Robbins. That was a big deal for me. I went and pitched Baskin-Robbins up in LA. And they asked me the question at one of the interviews, what if you go out of business? And I was so insulted, I said, what if you go out of business? And they threw me out. The lessons I've learned is essentially how I see companies. Clay Christensen and Mark Long are a couple of academics that really nailed this whole innovator's dilemma and things like that. The way I see a lot of these tech companies coming through is disruptive, substitutive, or complementary innovations. And to do an example of that is Google, back in the day when they first started, they went and presented to Alta Vista and Yahoo and said, we have a better search tool, and we wanted to sell it to Yahoo for $1 million. Unfortunately for Yahoo, they didn't buy it, but what Google knew, based upon the user's expectations, the user they craved bandwidth, and they craved speed and relevance. And what the guys at Google realized is the user's expectations, if they can get more relevance in their search and more speed, Google essentially could meet those expectations, where the incumbent offering of Yahoo wasn't able to meet those expectations. So Google essentially is the blue line, the users jumped in. A contemporary example today is Google+. If anybody's seen the new Facebook-ish social network, there is a recent stat that says they've got 20 million users in the last 3 weeks. So if there is an incumbent, as Facebook is, Google is now showing that the expectations are being met, and 20 million people think so. The other thing that I learned is about a repeatable business model. Mike is a fantastic entrepreneur, and I believe that one of the things that a lot of entrepreneurs have to realize is their idea has to have a business model that can be repeated. So the more customers and the more activity that you can get with your idea, and if you're in a business-to-business, or if your model has residual revenue, that way you have a good foundation. And with Blue Hornet, I was able to prove that and be able to find a sweet spot of pricing that a lot of people wanted to sign up for. So my first baby went to college, and he was bought by Digital River, so that was kind of exciting, in 2004, so it was about 4 years. And so some of my California friends basically said, what are you thinking of doing going to Cleveland? And so they think of San Diego as sun and sand, and they think of Cleveland as rust and rain. And I think a lot of the entrepreneurs here have that mentality, a little despair type of mentality when you meet, is they don't have the collaboration of Palo Alto. When they read the tech blogs, everything is about California, California, California. And I think that type of mentality really needs to be tempered by essentially what I'm working on right now. And so you can look at it through this lens, but it's not very fruitful in what you're trying to do. So as I'm the EIR, I want to share lessons learned from California. And the first thing that I want to start with the Cleveland entrepreneurs, especially the ones that have a little despair mentality, is you guys have a lot of good soil here, and you have a lot of good ghosts. And there are some fantastic stories of how these folks really were the center of innovation in some of the most amazing sectors, manufacturing, obviously oil. And what the purpose of me talking with these entrepreneurs is really to set the tone that if you really have a good idea, let's go through it and make sure that it's enough to mortgage your house or quit your day job. I like the way Mike said. So your idea really goes through what we call the valley of death. And there's an initial idea, let's say on the napkin, and then you get a sniff test. Is this really a good idea? And then I like the entrepreneurs to go through a little bit of a boot camp saying, do you really want to quit your day job? Do you really want to go this way? And if you think, this is how you're going to get rich and stuff, you probably want to think again. There might be your 7th idea that you get rich on, but really trying to get the folks through the valley. Then what we like to do is help get a customer development. If you are in the tech sector and you really think you have a great idea, try to throw it, like Mike had some great advice, is try to find somebody that's willing to pay for it. And maybe get a letter of intent or something, really get some gas in your tank. Then I help get through the legal, and then you get to the prototype. So if you're able to get through that, that's a kind of an exciting thing. But here's really your future. Mike had some cool pictures too. Here you are, the fish. You're the entrepreneur, and then you have two kind of folks that are obstacles in your way. You have your haters on the left, and then you have the empty stomach of your bank account. So the future for entrepreneurs really in this area is swimming upstream, but I think it gets you stronger because once you get through the valley, there's a lot of other static that you're going to get once you get through it. And the stronger you are now, the more you have the ability to weather the storms of lawsuits and employees and all this other fun stuff. So when you're communicating your idea, Mike kind of took my thunder on what to do, but essentially you really want to communicate it like you're trying to help some elderly person down the steps. And she has to get her footing before you can you don't want to hit her with the fire hose of, this is my idea, it's so fantastic. You really have these 4 areas that you want to do. So once she has her footing on the step of the market, how big the market is, the second step would be the problem. What are you solving in this big market? Could you be the market leader with this solution? Then you have to say, I have the team that can execute on this problem, and my solution, I believe, will get that market share. And then the most important thing to investors is the business model. I remember being with a bunch of investors, and I had about 3,000 slides, which you should never do, and my financials were on slide 2,738, I think. And my one investor said, Kendall, I don't care if you're selling cat fur, I want to see the financials. And I think if you're able to communicate that your model is a tangible model, that's a repeatable model, I think that needs to really be in your idea that you can make money over and over and over again. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what I think the future holds for a lot of the tech entrepreneurs, and I think what could help with the experience I learned in California as well as what I'm seeing throughout the space. What the future trends that I'm seeing, and a couple of these are no-brainer to some people, obviously are social with the Facebook and Quora and all them. Mobile, probably none of us here had a smartphone 5 years ago, or maybe a couple, but relative, probably everybody has a smartphone now. And then obviously the cloud is a hot thing. Netflix is probably going to be going to a whole a download service. The Apple computers no longer have disk drives. But all 3 of these things really point to data. And I love data, and I started to think about how data really can affect. And then I started to really dig into it. And it's not just data, but it's big data. And this is on Fat Booth, killer killer iPhone app. My kids love it. But big data it's quite exciting. It said more data collected in the last 7 years than since humanity began. And so if you can think of all the things that collect data, and if you're able to make sense of them and put them into business intelligence, that's where it kind of gets exciting. So McKinsey said that over the next 10 years, big data will contribute to the U.S. economy on staggering levels. And this is new economy. This isn't necessarily improvements, but radical stuff. So I put, what is this big data all about? Well, a couple of the things that are collecting data that you might know about. Jawbone, the earpiece, came out with a thing called the wristband, and you actually can wear that and it can sync with your phone, and you're able to collect data when you walk and all your activity, your steps, and really exciting things to collect the data just on that. Another neat thing is there's this contact lens that a company came up with that it'll actually track your blood pressure, your cholesterol, your glucose reading, and it won't affect your sight, and you're able to actually beam that data and then put it through the cloud, and maybe your physician can read it. So there's a lot of very exciting things that are collecting data. But really, I think would be awesome for the region is with CASE and other great universities here, is if we really could push these computer science folks and math students and things like that to think of how big data could really impact the region. There's a recent search, if you search Indeed for big data, what jobs are relative to big data, you can see the spike at January 10th of how important this stuff is. So if you're a college kid and you never want to worry about employment again, be a statistician. Or if you have a kid, my kids, you will all be statisticians. So just real quick recap, lessons I learned from California is the kids here, I believe, coming out of these schools are just as smart as the ones in Stanford and all these other big epicenters. I think that if you really get the universities engaged in tech transfer more and collaboration and really get other private equity involved, and we could, not necessarily mimic the model from California, but get the lessons learned from them, get to see what makes them excited, and then maybe do our own thing. But the more we can learn from them and improve it here, knowing that our soil is better than their soil, I think if we get that cloud of despair away from the current entrepreneurs in Ohio, a lot of good stuff can happen. So currently I'm helping entrepreneurs. If you have an idea and you think it's got something tangible, definitely see me. And I really think the future in this tech space is big data. So here's my last slide. And here you guys are lighting those boats there. And this is burn the ships. And there's a whole story about burning the ships. And essentially there's no way back. And so once you actually start your company, you have to burn the ships and make sure that you go full steam ahead and you go through the pitfalls and stuff, and that's one of your developers watching you burn his ship. So thank you, and that's it.